Okay, welcome everybody to the regularly scheduled August 2017 meeting of the Metropolitan Area Planning Commission. First thing to do is have Carla call the roll.
Mark Arnold.
Here.
Whitney Hall.
Here.
Cody Haney. Marvin Kissick. Eddie Mack.
Here.
David Mason.
Here.
Cole Ream.
Here.
Don Roberts. Here. That's a quorum.
Okay, first item on the agenda is to consider approval of the minutes of the regularly scheduled Metropolitan Planning Commission meeting from July. Everybody, I assume, has had an opportunity to review that. Do we have any questions or comments?
Motion to accept.
I have a motion. Second. I have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that passes. And we'll skip down to our next item agenda, which is 5.1, use by review. Consider a use by review for a large family child care located at 1716 East Chestnut, known as beginning 75 feet west of section, over the southeast corner of Lot 4, north 150 feet, west 75, south 150 feet, east 75 feet, to beginning Block 13, Fairview Edition. Go ahead if you have.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman, Planning Commissioners, City Management. The property is on the screen in front of you, 1716 East Chestnut. Currently, they are operating a child care facility at this location. They want to increase the number of children beyond 7 up to a maximum of 12. And in our ordinance, when we go to that larger capacity, it requires a use by review. And what we want to make sure is that we have adequate parking for the increased number of children. And in this case, you can see that there are 2 cars parked on the driveway and space to the right for 2 more, and there is curb parking along Chestnut there, so there's adequate parking. All the utilities, none of that will impact or change the home. Staff's recommendation to approve. Are there any questions?
No complaints from any of the neighbors.
Thank you for asking that. We did post the property as our ordinance requires for a period of at least 7 days, and we received no complaints from the surrounding neighborhood.
Any questions or comments?
According to the ordinance, will they ever be able to go above 12?
No, sir.
Okay. Do I have a motion?
Move to approve.
I have a motion. Do I have a second? And I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? Okay, that motion carries. The next item, jump down to 8.1, lot splits. Consider a lot split for a tract of land situated in blocks 1 and 2, North Adams Street between blocks 1 and 2, a part of West Chestnut Avenue, all situated in the Kenwood addition to the City of Enid for the Johnston Seed Company Incorporated, located at 319 West Chestnut. Okay,
thank you, Chairman. The slide in front of you, the yellow outline shows the property being split off from the Johnson Seed campus. I think this is a little better shot, larger scale. You can see that we have water and sewer in Chestnut. Chestnut provides access to the property as well. It meets all of our lot split requirements. It's recommended for approval. Are there any questions of staff? We do have one person signed up to speak on this item. If there are no questions for me.
Anyone?
Okay. Brendan Atkinson signed up to speak.
I actually filed. I actually filed the application and signed up only to speak if there were any questions.
Any questions for this gentleman? Do I have a motion?
Motion.
I have a motion. Do I have a second?
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Any opposed?
Thank you.
And that motion carries.
May I be excused?
Yes, thank you.
Your deed is.
Our next item agenda is 8.2 lot splits. Consider a lot split for part of the northwest quarter of Section 14, Township 22 North, Range 7 west of the Indian Meridian, located at 921 and 929 South Oakwood.
Thank you, Mr. Chairman. The slide shows the property. It's just south of 412 on the east side of Oakwood, give you kind of across from the mall, help you get oriented. I didn't give you a bigger picture, and I apologize for not doing that. The dashed line shows the property as it is now, and there are two separate buildings and actually two different functioning businesses, and between the two of them, they want to separate so they have their own property. So the yellow box represents the lot being considered for the split this evening, and I have access to both pieces of property off of Oakwood. They have an existing driveway that comes off Oakwood that provides for both businesses. In the survey that you have in your packet, they're going to maintain that same mutual access agreement, which is good for us, the city of Enid, because we have less curb cuts off of an arterial street. You can see that we have water and sewer in Oakwood. Lot split is recommended for approval. Are there any questions?
Okay, if we don't have any questions, do I have a motion? I have a motion. Second. I have a second. All those in favor? Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. Next item on the agenda is 9.1, traffic. Consider a request for inset parking at the park area along Stone Ridge Lane and at the community building along North Ridge Lane in Forest Ridge First Edition, blocks 1 through 4.
Thank you, Commissioners. This is a request based on traffic, so acting as the traffic committee in that respect tonight. The request is from Carlisle Group LLC. They're requesting inset parking at two locations in Forest Ridge. They actually are developed as subdivision with a park at one location and a community room at another. On the map here, we have a map that shows generally the development of Forest Ridge that is just on the North Ridge and Stone Ridge, and the extension of Forest Ridge on the west side of the existing development. We've highlighted the park area and the proposed parking on the north of Stone Ridge and the community building site and proposed parking at the intersection of Forest Ridge and I believe that's North Ridge. The next representation here is just a closer view of the same location, showing location of inset parking at the park and proposed inset parking at a lot on North Ridge. And then we have a couple of drawings to show what they plan for the inset parking. This is at the park area, and you can see this is on a cul-de-sac, proposed handicap parking and another parking space as well. And the other location, again, this is turned slightly, but this would be North Ridge that they'd be fronting on, and Forest Ridge is actually running east-west this location. They're developing a community building and requested inset parking this location just off of Forest Ridge. I want to point out the policy manual for approving inset parking in these residential areas, and particularly item number 3, which says inset parking may be considered in townhouse condominiums or multifamily developments provided that the off-street parking requirements have otherwise been met and the request for inset parking is situated on a cul-de-sac or street that serves no purpose in carrying through traffic. So just to go back a little bit to the location, we think that would support, in this case, would probably support the inset parking on the cul-de-sac. It is on the cul-de-sac at a park area, end of a street. We do not think it supports and do not support the inset parking at on North Ridge. It's right around the curve from a through street that would actually connect subdivision out to 30th Street. So the recommendation would be to support the parking on the cul-de-sac, but not on North Ridge. With that, I'd be trying to happy and answer any questions.
It appears that there's intention to continue building down this Forest Ridge side of the street eventually.
Yeah, it is correct that Forest Ridge is a fruit street and it's provided for future development to the west. Thank you. Would use that street to access 30th Street. That is correct. There's no current files or plans to develop that site, but it's anticipated that as it develops, that would be the access point. There's a major drainage way to the north to get access to 412, so that would make sense that it would develop, yes.
You're obviously going to have limited traffic, though, since that north and south street that the inset is on cancels in a cul-de-sac there. Kind of reminds me of Trails West Community Center. They have about 4 times that kind of inset parking at the convergence of those 2 streets there by Skate Town. So I've used that area. I've never had a problem with anybody.
Are there any other examples of community buildings that either have no parking or are not on a cul-de-sac that have parking?
Well, I can't recall any other examples. I think the example you're talking about may be in a commercial area, not a residential area, which would be handled a little bit different. But in recent development, I can't think of any other examples for inset parking in residential subdivisions for community buildings.
Well, the Trails West, I mean, it's a mobile home park, but there's still, I know that we have some commercial and industrial around that, but I mean, they are living units, and I would dare say that there's probably more traffic on those commercial loops than there ever would be here, so.
I know it's outside of our jurisdiction, but North Enid in one of the newer neighborhoods up there has kind of the same setup.
I'm not aware of any traffic issues.
Robert,
they
is your
have.
concern that the vehicles will stick out in the...
Concern with inset, angle in inset, or inset parking, straight-in parking, is that the vehicles have to back out into the traffic, and it's just policy to limit that as much as possible to get the parking off of the right-of-way on private parking, or parallel parking on the, you can get parallel parking on the right-of-way, but the straight-in or the angle-in parking requires vehicles to back into through traffic, and it's just the policy not to support that in residential areas. Now, in the cul-de-sac, it's not through traffic; it's just localized traffic, certainly supported, and it can, and certainly the location at the community room is on a street that is a cul-de-sac, but it carries a little. It's not at the cul-de-sac; it's at the corner, and it's for that reason it's not supported. But
how much different is that going to be than every one of these driveways that have houses that you'll be backing out of the driveway?
That is true. The residential drives do have that problem, but typically inset parking is just higher used. Here would be a higher use parking. We'd have a much higher demand for that use, that backing, and that's just the policy not to support inset parking. Now, certainly, a limited inset parking is probably not going to create a real issue. It's not going to create a major issue. There could be an accident, but if you start allowing substantial amount of inset parking on residential streets, such as we have downtown, you're creating traffic that is you're creating traffic conflicts. So it's during the policy not to stay away from inset parking on residential neighborhoods.
Am I reading it correct? There's really only 1, 2, 3, 4 parking spots, with one of them being handicapped, or maybe 5 spots with a handicap?
Yes, this site would be 1, 2, 3, 4. There'd be 4 parking spaces, one of them handicapped. One area is actually access for the so it'd be 4 parking spaces, and one of them being a handicap parking space.
So what would be a recommended solution for a community building then for parking?
They would, the recommendation would do on-site, provide for on-site parking. Or they can parallel park on the street. That's not prohibited. And you can do inset parking for parallel parking on the street. Of course, that limits the number of parking spaces without on-site parking.
And then do you also lose the ability to take care of the handicap parking with the on-street parking?
No, you can put inset on-street parallel parking with handicap access, and we have done it at La Mesa Park and at I know on Randolph and 19th Street. So no, it can be can be handled. They can still provide adequate parking for ADA.
Well, we do have inset parking like at the splash pad on Hoover in Oklahoma. I would guarantee you that intersection gets 50 times more than this one probably would. So, with all due respect to the traffic department, I think the reason why we're discussing it is because it is an option, and I personally want cars off the street. I do not like them parked on the street. It creates more of a visual impairment than having them parked in inset parking. And I've been backing out of inset parking for 15 years at my office, which is in a predominantly residential neighborhood. And I've never had a problem. So that's my opinion on that.
If you went with the on-site parking, would you move all of the sidewalks up against the building, or would you lose the sidewalk entirely?
Are you talking about, well, if you went to on-site, the sidewalk typically would go straight across, and would typically go, typically go straight across, and then they would be a driveway to access parking either in here or back there. So it basically go straight across as it would in these other areas. It would go straight across because it'd be on the right of way and there wouldn't be parking, if that answers your question. If you're talking about inset parking, parallel parking, then it would be very similar to this. It just it would be parallel parking instead of the straight in parking.
It just doesn't look like it has the depth available to add the on-site parking.
It would on-site parking may be somewhat limited based on their design.
And then we'd have 2 curb cuts. So that's why this board has the options to look at these and look at the impairment.
Yes, certainly in your prerogative to, that's why it's brought before the board traffic committee.
And I don't see a good alternative, really.
And I only see 3 spots. If we had a dozen spots, I might think it's a bigger issue. But I like the comment about there's a lot more driveways down that street that's going to be parked in those.
Well, and then we've got a house right next door to it. So, I mean, while it may not be the optimal thing here in the real world, I think it's probably a good alternative. So
I'd be more worried about having parallel parking if I'm in lot 2 that's obstructing my driveway.
Yeah.
If it's
and down the side street and
then they're going to have to go all the way to the end of that cul-de-sac to turn around anyway.
yeah.
So now you've created busier on the street. This helps a little.
I think it's the lesser of 2 evils.
I'd move to approve both requests for inset parking.
I have a motion, I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed? And that motion carries. Thank you, Robert. Appreciate it. Okay, so that brings me to item 11.1, which is a sidewalk variance.
We're going to pull that.
And we're going to pull that because we need a 7-member voting constituency, and we do not have that tonight, so let zoning.
We'll bring it back to you next month.
Development, bring it back next month. So guess what? That leaves item number 12, which is adjournment. I have a motion. I have a motion.
Second.
I have a second. All those in favor?
Aye.
Aye. Any opposed can clean up afterwards. Thanks, sir.
Thank you.